This year, the World Economic Forum celebrates 25 years of collaboration and active engagement in India. What are your aspirations for this special edition of the summit?
First of all, I must congratulate the World Economic Forum for all the work that it has done with India for the past 25 years. I think India is at a very interesting stage of economic development, and my expectation is that the World Economic Forum can really bring India and the interest in India's economic development closer to the world and help in a way in bringing the world community participate in India's economic growth.
What have been India's greatest contributions over the past 25 years to the world?
I think in the past 25 years, India has in a way taught a new economic model of growth to the world, or created a new paradigm of economic growth. Traditionally and conventionally, it's always believed that manufacturing growth has to precede services growth, and that a whole lot of investment has to be pushed to really drive the growth of any country. But India has proven that actually it was the demographic advantage of the country that drove economic growth. The demographic advantage led to the growth of services sector, which then created the consumption demand, which therefore contributed to the growth of the manufacturing sector. So it was really a consumption led growth that then paved the way for investment led growth. And I think this is a much more sustainable format of growth and a much more sustainable model of growth for any country to follow.
India is one of the three major economies in the world which posted positive GDP growth in 2009. Will India be able to sustain this in 2010?
We have in India some very favorable fundamental advantages which are driving our growth. The advantage is our demographics, which is creating consumption demand, and that consumption is then creating demand for investment. The advantage of demographics for us is going to stay with us for many more decades, and therefore the consumption led growth and the investment led growth is going to be with us for some time to come. So the question for India is not really whether it will be able to sustain growth. I think sustaining a growth of even 6.5–7% even in this most difficult year is not going to be too much of a problem. The question is, how can we accelerate the single digit growth to a double digit growth rate? What more can we do to accelerate our infrastructure development and many of our other activities so that we can actually take India to the double digit growth rates and not just be satisfied with the higher single digit growth rates?
Is India doing enough to improve the infrastructure, or do you believe India should apply more fiscal stimulus as China has done to stimulate growth and upgrade infrastructure?
Well, infrastructure is definitely required to help and to sustain India's growth. So we need to do much more for infrastructure development than we have done in the past. But I would not look at investment in infrastructure as a mere fiscal stimulus to promote growth. I would look at investment in infrastructure as really a long-term requirement for growth and a long-term factor that will make growth sustainable. So indeed we need to do much more in infrastructure, but the good part here is that whatever we need to do in infrastructure is really arising out of the demand on the ability of the people to consume, and not really just a need for the government to push a fiscal stimulus to drive economic growth. I can see that there is a lot of intent both on the part of the government as well as on the part of the private sector to make a lot of infrastructure investments happen, partly just through the government machinery, partly just through the private machinery, and also partly through public-private partnership. And I am very hopeful that a lot of this infrastructure development will take place sooner than later.
What must business and government leaders do to ensure that girls across social classes in India can recognize and realize their full potential in relation to educational and employment opportunities?
For the girl child in India to realize the full potential, even before the government and business, the effort has to start from the families themselves. First, the parents have to create an atmosphere that it's an equal opportunity for both the boys and the girls. They have to be as enthusiastic to send their girls for education as they are about sending their boys for education. Then of course, I think the government has to create an environment in the education field which is again equal opportunity, that is provide an equal opportunity for both girls and boys to come and receive education in the education facilities. And finally, the corporates have to, in their employment structures, again create equal opportunity environment, which means that they should really give career opportunities to people based on merit and not based on gender. And as long as we make it a level playing field, both in terms of mindset and in terms of opportunities at home, at the educational institutions and at the workplace, I think the girl child in India will shine on the sheer basis of merit.